Story number 1: The Disappearing Boy. It was the 4th of July in 1995, a day filled with anticipation and celebration in the small town of Lakewood, Ohio. The air was thick with the scent of barbecues, the sky decorated with bursts of red, white, and blue as fireworks painted the evening. Families gathered in backyards and parks, but for the Johnson family, this 4th of July would be remembered for an entirely different reason. 8-year-old Timmy Johnson had been eagerly waiting for this day. His parents, Michael and Linda, had promised him an unforgettable evening at the town's annual fireworks show. As dusk settled, they packed a picnic and headed to the lakefront, where hundreds of locals had already gathered. Timmy's excitement was palpable, his small frame vibrating with joy as he darted around, playing with other children while his parents set up their spot. As the first fireworks lit up the sky, everyone's attention was drawn upward. The colorful explosions reflected in Timmy's wide eyes, his face glowing with wonder. Amidst the awe and noise, Michael and Linda allowed themselves a moment of relaxation, confident in the safety of their surroundings. They watched as Timmy joined a group of kids running near the edge of the lake. Minutes turned into an hour, and the grand finale approached. The sky was a canvas of lights, the crowd cheering with each burst. It was only when the fireworks ended and the smoke began to clear that Linda realized she hadn't seen Timmy for some time. She scanned the crowd, expecting to see his familiar face. Panic set in when she couldn't find him. "Michael, where's Timmy?" Linda's voice trembled with fear. Michael's heart sank as he stood, looking around frantically. They called his name, their voices growing more desperate with each unanswered shout. The other parents joined in the search, but Timmy was nowhere to be found. The joyful atmosphere quickly turned somber as the realization dawned that a child was missing. The police were called, and a thorough search of the area began. Divers scoured the lake, and officers combed through the surrounding woods and neighborhood, but there was no sign of Timmy. Days turned into weeks, and the Johnsons were living a nightmare. Flyers with Timmy's smiling face plastered every lamppost and store window. News channels covered the story, but as time passed, hope began to wane. Months later, on a crisp October morning, a local fisherman named Joe discovered something strange while casting his line into the lake. Tangled in the roots of an old, submerged tree was a small shoe, unmistakably a child's. Joe's heart raced as he carefully retrieved it, recognizing it from the flyers that still clung to the town's bulletin boards. The police were called, and the lake was searched again, this time with more intensity. They found Timmy's body, lifeless and eerily preserved by the cold water. It appeared he had slipped and fallen into the lake, unable to call for help over the noise of the fireworks. The discovery brought a devastating end to the Johnsons' hope, but at least they had closure. The town of Lakewood mourned alongside the Johnson family. A small memorial was set up by the lake, a bench with Timmy's name engraved on it. Every 4th of July, the fireworks show would pause for a moment of silence in memory of the boy who disappeared that fateful night. To this day, families in Lakewood keep a closer eye on their children, especially during the festivities. The story of Timmy Johnson serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly joy can turn into tragedy, and how a single moment of distraction can alter lives forever. Story number 2: The Haunted House. The 4th of July in 2011 was supposed to be a day of celebration for the residents of Amherst, Virginia. The town, nestled in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, came alive with parades, picnics, and an elaborate fireworks display. However, for the Carter family, this day marked the beginning of a chilling mystery that would haunt them for years. The Carters had recently moved into a historic Victorian house on the outskirts of town. The house, built in the 1800s, had a storied past, rumored to have been a stop on the Underground Railroad. Despite its age and the eerie stories, the Carters were enchanted by its charm and history. John and Sarah Carter, along with their 2 children, 12-year-old Emily and 10-year-old Ben, spent the afternoon preparing for a neighborhood barbecue. As evening approached, they joined their new friends and neighbors, mingling and enjoying the festivities. The children played games, and the adults chatted, the atmosphere filled with laughter and joy. As darkness fell, the crowd gathered at the town square for the fireworks show. The Carters settled on a blanket, eagerly awaiting the display. When the first fireworks erupted in the sky, Ben noticed something odd. He tugged on his mother's sleeve, pointing towards their house, visible from their vantage point. "Mom, look. There's a light in the attic," Ben whispered. Sarah squinted at the house. Indeed, a faint glow emanated from the attic window. Puzzled, she dismissed it, thinking it might be a reflection from the fireworks. However, as the show continued, the light in the attic grew brighter and more distinct, flickering as if someone was moving around inside. Concerned, John decided to investigate. "Stay here," he told Sarah. "I'll go check it out." He hurried back to the house, navigating the dimly lit streets. As he approached the house, the light in the attic suddenly went out. John's heart pounded as he unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house was eerily silent. He called out, but there was no response. Gathering his courage, he climbed the stairs to the attic. The attic door creaked open, revealing a cluttered space filled with old furniture and boxes. John searched the room, but there was no sign of anyone. The only source of light was a dusty old lantern sitting on a wooden crate. It was unlit, and John couldn't understand how it had cast such a bright glow. Baffled, he returned to his family, assuring them that the house was empty. They tried to enjoy the rest of the evening, but the incident left them uneasy. The following days brought more strange occurrences. Emily began hearing whispers at night, faint voices she couldn't understand. Ben claimed to see shadows moving in the hallway. Objects in the house seemed to shift positions on their own. Sarah tried to rationalize these events, but the frequency and intensity of the disturbances grew. Desperate for answers, Sarah delved into the history of their home. She discovered that the house had indeed been a stop on the Underground Railroad, but it had a darker past. Legend had it that a former owner, a man named Henry Whitaker, had hidden a group of runaway slaves in the attic. One night, federal agents raided the house. In the ensuing chaos, the lantern in the attic was knocked over, starting a fire that trapped and killed several people. Henry Whitaker was said to have died trying to save them. Sarah shared her findings with John, and they both realized the significance of the attic light. It seemed the spirits of those who perished in the fire were still trapped, reliving their final moments. Determined to help, the Carters sought the assistance of a local historian and a paranormal investigator. Together, they conducted a séance in the attic, hoping to communicate with the restless spirits. As they sat in a circle, holding hands, the air grew cold, and the flickering lantern light returned. Through the séance, they learned that the spirits were indeed those who had died in the fire, unable to move on due to the trauma of their deaths. The investigator performed a cleansing ritual, urging the spirits to find peace. After that night, the disturbances ceased. The attic light no longer glowed, and the whispers and shadows disappeared. The Carters continued to live in the house, now at peace, honoring its history and those who had suffered within its walls. Every 4th of July, the Carters place a lantern in the attic window, not as a signal of fear, but as a tribute to those who once sought freedom within their home. The town of Amherst remembers the story, a reminder of its haunted past and the enduring spirit of those who lived through its darkest days. Story number 3: The Vanishing Firework. The 4th of July in 2022 was a night to remember for the residents of Portland, Oregon. The city was alive with festivities, and the annual fireworks show at Waterfront Park promised to be spectacular. Among the excited crowd was Jenna Martin, a 25-year-old nurse, looking forward to a rare night off to enjoy the celebration with her friends. Jenna and her group arrived early to secure a good spot near the river. They laid out blankets, unpacked snacks, and settled in as the sky darkened. The first fireworks soared into the night, their brilliant colors reflecting off the water, eliciting cheers and applause from the crowd. As the show progressed, Jenna noticed something strange. A particularly large firework, designed to explode into a massive bloom, shot into the sky but didn't detonate. Instead, it seemed to disappear into the darkness. The crowd murmured in confusion, but the display continued without further incident. After the show ended, Jenna and her friends decided to walk along the riverfront before heading home. The streets were bustling with people, and the air was filled with the scent of food from vendors and the sound of laughter. They strolled past the Hawthorne Bridge, talking and laughing, when Jenna suddenly felt a chill. She glanced up and saw a figure standing on the bridge, looking down at the water. "Did you see that?" Jenna asked, nudging her friend Mark. "See what?" Mark replied, following her gaze. The figure was gone. "Never mind," Jenna said, shaking off the feeling. They continued walking, but Jenna couldn't shake the sense that something was off. The next day, news broke that a young man named Alex Ramirez had gone missing after the fireworks show. He was last seen near the Hawthorne Bridge, the same spot where Jenna had seen the mysterious figure. The city launched a search, but there was no trace of Alex. Jenna couldn't stop thinking about the disappearance. She felt a strange connection to the event, convinced that the vanishing firework and the figure she saw were somehow linked to Alex's fate. She decided to investigate further, hoping to find some clues that the authorities might have missed. She visited the bridge, retracing her steps from that night. As she stood near the railing, looking down at the water, she noticed something unusual. There was a faint, burnt smell in the air, almost like gunpowder. Following her instincts, Jenna walked along the riverbank, searching for anything out of place. Behind a cluster of bushes, she found a small, charred piece of metal. It looked like a fragment from a firework casing. Jenna carefully picked it up and examined it. There were strange markings on it, almost like symbols. She took a photo and decided to show it to her friend Liam, who worked at a local fireworks company. Liam studied the fragment and the symbols, his brow furrowing. "This is odd," he said. "These markings aren't standard. They look like some sort of coded message." Intrigued, Jenna and Liam worked together to decipher the symbols. After hours of research and cross-referencing, they managed to decode the message. It led them to an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place where unused or defective fireworks were stored. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, Jenna and Liam decided to check out the warehouse. They arrived late in the afternoon, the setting sun casting long shadows across the dilapidated building. The door creaked open, revealing rows of dusty shelves filled with boxes and equipment. As they explored, they found a hidden room at the back of the warehouse. Inside, to their shock, was Alex Ramirez. He was unconscious but alive, tied to a chair. They quickly untied him and called for help. The authorities arrived, and Alex was taken to the hospital. Alex later revealed that he had been kidnapped by a disgruntled former employee of the fireworks company, seeking revenge for being fired. The kidnapper had rigged the firework to malfunction, using it as a signal to carry out the abduction. Alex had managed to leave a clue in the form of the metal fragment, hoping someone would find it and follow the trail. Thanks to Jenna's intuition and determination, Alex was saved, and the kidnapper was apprehended. The story of the vanishing firework and the rescue spread quickly, becoming a local legend. Every year on the 4th of July, Jenna and her friends would gather at the riverfront, not just to celebrate but to remember the strange, terrifying night that led to a heroic rescue and a newfound appreciation for the bonds that bring people together in times of crisis.